Hi everyone, welcome back to the fifth session of today's event. Now I have the pleasure to invite Kilton and Philipp to join us for this session. Kilton is co-founder and CTO at Edgeworks, and Philipp is co-founder and CEO at Sedalo. And today they will share insights with us on what Edge Native means and why it represents a unique approach to edge computing. So I'm going to give you the stage now. Thank you so much and welcome.
Great. Hey, everybody. So let me go ahead and share some slides here, and then we'll dive right in. Thanks for joining us today. Looks like we're starting screen share. And can you all see the slide? Or Philip, I guess I should say.
I can, yeah.
Okay, great.
I'm the only one you see.
Thank you. Great. It's welcome to the world of virtual conferences. So let's talk about what Edge Native means, put it in some context, and we're going to do a live demonstration today of Edge Native in action. So the general concept here is you've probably heard of cloud native, and you've possibly even heard of edge computing. Well, so cloud native is all about thinking if we're going to build things in a scalable and kind of hardware agnostic and infrastructure agnostic way, and it's kind of designed for the cloud from the bottom up, that would be then cloud native. Edge native is a very similar concept, except let me make sure my notifications here are turned off. There we go. Good old do not disturb. So edge native is a similar concept, except you design from the edge in instead of from the cloud out, or instead of from the data center out. And so to be edge native means that everything that you do is taking into account the fact that you should be operating in an edge environment primarily, and then dropping data over into a cloud environment as a secondary step. And so to be edge native means that instead of moving the data to where the applications are running, so in other words, moving all of the data up into the cloud, you actually move the applications and move the processing out to where the data edge is. And so what you see here on this slide is this is an example of different edge locations. And so in the upper right corner here, you have a smart camera edge. Above it, you have a factory edge. So this would be industrial IoT. And this would be edge AI for a smart camera. You can even have regular colo processing, or have what we call a micro data center, which is like almost like bringing the cloud environment down to your facility in order to do the processing there. These are all examples of being edge native. And so if we're going to move the processing down to where the data is, then we get the advantages of being able to work with the data before it needs to be standardized. We get to work with the data before we need to shrink the volume or filter out duplicates and so on. There's all of these operations that traditionally have been done to move the data along its path. But now you can actually apply the application there. In our example today, we're going to show Eclipse ioFog, which is one of the primary Eclipse projects in the edge native space. And it's intricately working with IoT software. And so we're going to show, on top of Eclipse ioFog as an edge computing platform, we're going to show Eclipse Streamsheets. And so I think before we go into actually showing it, let me tee up a little bit about what makes this demonstration of Streamsheets running on ioFog edge native. So Streamsheets is a wonderful example of how you can be edge native, because you're able to flexibly apply processing to data streams that are occurring at the edge. And that's what we're going to show you today, wherein then you don't think in terms of writing software on a one-off basis anymore, but rather pushing infrastructure software out to where the data is flowing to begin to capture it and work with it in a much more fluid and dynamic fashion. And so before we show it in action, let me pass the screen sharing over to Philipp so he can actually show what is Streamsheets. And then when we take a look at it in action, you get a little bit more familiarity with what we're about to see.
Perfect. Hi, also from my side. I'm going to give you a short introduction to Streamsheets, especially then here in the context also of running on the edge. And the really nice thing is there, as Kilton also already outlined, is it's really running where the data actually is. So right before you have to send it somewhere else, so to say. Let me just give you a little bit of an introduction here. I hope my screen is visible.
Yeah, it's coming up.
Perfect. So Streamsheets actually is stream processing for everybody. So it helps you to build an application that you at one place that you can run then later on at several places actually. And it does that in a quite unique way. And to give you a little bit of background, it helps to see how Streamsheets and everything behind it looks a little bit at the world, if you want to put it like this. And it's that essentially every process, everything that's happening is essentially just a series of events. We're going to see that live in action in a couple of minutes. And the idea behind that is this series of events, or these series of events, they're looked at real-time data streams. And it can actually be many different things, many different data sources. So whether these are orders or sensor readings, as we're going to have them, invoices, data from machine telemetry data, or really data coming from other services, from databases, or essentially anywhere else. You always have those data streams, and the idea behind it is actually how do you merge them, how do you combine them, how do you visualize them and store them. Streamsheets is a tool to do that in a unique fashion, in the way that up until now, you typically have to program if you want to do anything with this data, but most people can actually not write code. They are not programmers. However, they still might have a lot of process expertise. So I'm thinking here especially about engineers, for example, especially also on the edge, like process and quality engineers, for example. They are all quite proficient typically with spreadsheets, are not afraid to touch it. And that's also the idea that we took here, or the approach that we took. Streamsheets lets you build applications actually that run on the edge, and you work in a familiar user interface really just by using operations of drag and drop and formulas like you know them from Excel or Google Sheets, plus a couple of additional ones. And now really the last slide is to give you the complete overview here, is that Streamsheets. So what you build then there are actually microservices that run on servers, can also be in the cloud, but it can especially also run on the edge. You use really spreadsheet formulas to define how data is sent, how it's controlled, how it's visualized, how it's merged, how it's combined, so the whole logic behind it. And for that reason, Streamsheets can essentially consume a couple of protocols and as well send data out via the same protocols. So talking here, for example, about MQTT, HTTP, so REST APIs, for example, a couple of databases, or Apache Kafka. Data can come in via any of those protocols and go out via the same protocol, other protocols, or whatsoever. And the logic of how that happens and how it needs to go, all of that is done within Streamsheets in this Excel-like interface, if you want to say so. Cheers. So we're gonna hand over for the demonstration back to Kilton. He's got the tech there, the wearables.
All right. So I have a heart rate detection, a heart rate sensor wearable here that speaks Bluetooth low energy. So the distance limit is, of course, just 10 meters, not something that you can pass up to the cloud. So we are going to move some processing into the room here with me so that we can pick up this data stream, and we're going to pipe it into Streamsheets and show what to do with it. You should start to get the picture as we show this of what it really means to be pushing your software down to the edge. To begin, let me go back to my slides briefly and then show some of Eclipse ioFog before we deploy them. So here we should be back with the slide that I showed previously. And so if we want to dive into just with one or two slides here, Eclipse ioFog, we can get an understanding of what we're working with and how to move software down to the edge. This slide represents what runs on the edge hardware. This is what we call the agent piece. Something has to turn a piece of hardware into a viable edge compute node. And this is very similar to putting orchestration software, cloud orchestration software on a rack-mounted server in a cloud environment, such as installing kubelet if it's going to be part of a Kubernetes cluster and so on. This is the edge equivalent of that. This agent piece goes on some hardware, and then boom, it becomes an edge node. And then we have the ability to manage it. And ioFog comes with a tool called ioFog CTL, which is a really powerful command line tool that I'm going to show you today, which introduces this concept of managing software that's running at the edge. The concept is EdgeOps, very similar to DevOps and how that relates to cloud, but this is all related to the edge. And you can take a look at your entire, what we call an edge compute network, with this piece, this visual piece that comes with Eclipse ioFog, we call ECN Viewer. ECN means Edge Compute Network. An Edge Compute Network, in a nutshell, is all of the hardware, all of the Edge Compute nodes that are under your authority to work with, so that you can deploy software across sometimes a variety of hardware, sometimes a whole stack of software on one piece of hardware. So that's how it all comes together. So enough of the slides. Let's go ahead and take a look at a live edge compute network. So here I have an ECN, an edge compute network, with some devices, and in particular, this device here, which is with me in my home office in Berkeley, California. This is the one that I'm going to do some work with. And I can check in on this device and see its health and all this available information. Pretty cool, but this is very low-level stuff. What we want to actually do is deploy some software. As you can see, there are currently no microservices running on this edge node. So I'm going to change that and deploy some stuff. All I needed to do to get this device into my edge compute network, which by the way, you can see is, got some global aspects to it, right? As the edge nodes all over the world. All I needed to do is to put together this really small, beautiful YAML file. And then, just like working with Kubernetes and some of the the developed tools or things like Chef or Ansible and some of these tools around EdgeOps and infrastructure management, we have this concept called infrastructure as code. This YAML file represents the hardware that I want to bring into my edge compute network, how to find it and how to do the work. Well, I already executed the command to bring this in, but I just wanted to point out very few lines of YAML needed in order to bring a new piece of hardware into the edge compute network. So it's already brought in, it's right here. And let's take a look at this command line tool that I mentioned, ioFog CTL. If I issue this command, ioFog CTL get all, what I get back is the command line version of this view. Right, so I have now a listing of all of my edge nodes and how they're doing, and if they have an external IP address that's being exposed, how I might find them, and all kinds of cool stuff, and what's their uptime. Also, a listing of what microservices and applications I'm currently running, and the answer to that is none at the moment. So we're about to deploy some. Well, if
Kilton, just one
yes.
quick thing. You can actually, I just found that out. You can actually toggle away your video, then the screen becomes larger and it's easier to follow actually.
Oh, great. How do I do that? If I go here, can I do like this? Does that give you a bigger view?
I think it does. Yeah, that looks good. Perfect.
All right, great. Thanks so much for the tip, Philip. So if 11-line file is or a 10-line file is needed to deploy a piece of hardware, how about deploying an application? Well, it's fortunately not much more. So in the ioFog structure here, I have defined an application, and I've named it Streamsheets infrastructure. And I have to specify what microservice images I want to deploy. So in this case, Docker container images. And as you see, we can specify for various hardware environments, RMX86, and we also offer the ability to deploy certain images if there's a GPU available or an Intel VPU, so some cool stuff. Now, I'm specifying directly which edge node I want to deploy it to. So let's go ahead and deploy it to this one that I've previously shown you. And I do that with the command line tool, ioFog CTL deploy from a file. So this would be Streamsheets Part 1 and ioFog 2.0. I'm going to hit deploy, and it'll say, okay, I'm deploying, and it doesn't take long. Now, what has happened here is you can see I have this little blue box. This tells me I have a microservice now running on this edge node. And now and I've also got a numeric indicator here. Now this microservice is going to get stood up, and I just so happen to have a connection here into the edge node so that I can take a look and see when it comes up. So if I do watch Docker PS, we'll let this sit for a moment, and it'll take anywhere from 20 to 30 seconds for the edge node to, there we go, it's come up already. It takes a few seconds for the edge node to receive the command from the ioFog control plane and execute that command. Now, the important thing to note is this compute box is in my home office. It's behind NAT layers and firewall layers. Normally, you wouldn't be able to execute commands like this unless you are with that same box on the network or you have a VPN or whatever. But if I wanted to, I could give any of you who are watching the authority to administer this edge compute network with me. And then you could do the same thing that I just did from no matter where you are on the planet, as long as you have the credentials to work with my edge compute network. So the power here is that you deploy software into environments where normally you would need to have some kind of a privileged connection, like a fixed VPN or something like that. But now that whole world has changed. If this edge compute box is in a vehicle traveling down the road at 20, 30 miles an hour through my neighborhood, I can still administer changes in software to it as it moves about in the world. So what we have now is we've brought up Streamsheets, which means that it's going to be available here for me to open the actual Streamsheets interface. So that happens to be this IP address and this port. And what we're going to get here is we'll just step through the initial license agreement to get started with Streamsheets. My language is English. And then we'll take a look at working with Streamsheets. But the important thing to note is this is actually running right here in my edge environment. So instead of a cloud deploy, I'm now dealing with the deploy on my edge hardware here where the data is going to come in. So here we go. And this will take a moment to load the login page, and then I'll log in, and we'll start to learn about what we're doing here at the edge, including starting to gather a data stream. So it comes with the default username and password, which if you work with Streamsheets, you'll learn immediately. And so here we have the starting admin interface. Well, I want to drop over immediately to look at my types of connections, because I'm going to drop my Bluetooth wearable device data in via MQTT. So initially, I have all of these types of connectors. And this is really cool because I've now used ioFog to push out Streamsheets. And once Streamsheets goes live on the edge, I now can switch over to working with all of my data flows via Streamsheets with ioFog as the deployment infrastructure. A parallel to this would be deploying Streamsheets into the cloud on AWS and then logging in via there, right? So we're doing all of that same workflow, except it's running right here at the edge with the magic of ioFog. And now let's look at the magic of Streamsheets. So I need to go into this connector, which is the MQTT connector, and learn what my randomly generated password is so that I can deploy my data stream software via ioFog with that connection allowed. So now let's take a look at what I'm going to deploy next, which is how to get the data flow off this wearable. This application for ioFog is, instead of one microservice, it's 3 of them. The first one is going to grab my heart rate information from the Bluetooth wearable that I showed you. And then we're going to deploy a layer that we call REST Blue, which is a very popular edge microservice abstraction layer that allows the Bluetooth data to be available via a REST API and a set of REST and WebSocket endpoints that makes it very easy to work with Bluetooth devices, just like as if they were like a cloud API. And then finally, I have a microservice that's going to take the output of this initial microservice and pass it via MQTT into the Streamsheets infrastructure. And here's where I want to change that password, because for this demonstration, I wanted to build everything from scratch. You would normally set all of this config into a set of YAML files where everything is intricately tied. You wouldn't deploy Streamsheets with the default username and password that's used for demonstration. You'd deploy it with something more secure. You'd deploy you would set the MQTT broker username, password, all of that stuff. But for a demo, I want you to see how all the pieces come together. So I'm going to deploy this other piece so that we can start to get the data flow in, and then we'll start to build stuff with Streamsheets. So I'm going to deploy this one, and it's going to be here, Streamsheets 3 for version 2.0. Let's push this one down. And so now that should succeed momentarily. Great. Now we're going to see, if I look at my Edge Compute Network, more microservices. Great. So they'll stand up momentarily on that Edge node. So I don't need to make any changes to my MQTT connector, but what I do want to do is I actually want to go in and I want to make a new data consumer. I have a default one, but I want to show you how easy it is to add a data consumer in Streamsheets. I'm just going to call this one heart rate. I'm going to base it on the MQTT connector. And so here, I've got the name that I set and everything, and now I want to give it a topic. And the topic I have here is heart rate. And you can see that I knew that topic already here from how I wanted to set up my data stream. And so by establishing this connector or this consumer of MQTT data, all I have to do now is use this as my data source, and whatever I publish on this topic is going to come in. So very cool. And so let me make sure that this guy is properly connected, looking good. Now let's go back to the Stream Machines dashboard that I have here and start to build some stuff so that we make sure we get to see everything. I'm going to create a new stream. I'm just going to call it heart rate demo. And so I'm going to use, let's see, oh, actually, you know what I need to do? I need to make sure that this is, my new consumer is available. So let me make it here like this. There we go. Heart rate is now available. I'm going to call this heart rate demo. I'm going to use that heart rate data consumer and add. So here I'm getting what's called a new stream machine. Super powerful stuff. And here comes that spreadsheet interface that Philipp was talking about that I can use to work with the data. And there's so much stuff that I can show, but I'm going to focus on showing enough that you get the picture and we achieve some success in the next 8 minutes. As you can see down here, all of my microservices have deployed. So if everything goes well in the land of the demo gods, I'm going to put on this wearable and I'm going to push its power button, and we should start to see data stream in as soon as I hit play on the stream sheet. And what that means is I'm going to start tracking data and doing operations on the stream of data. So I've turned on the wearable, and now if everything's working properly here, in a moment we're going to start to see data show up on the left-hand side. So it looks like it got its connection picked up, and with any luck here, look at that. Here comes the data. Beautiful. Looks like my heart rate is a beautiful low 57 beats per minute, but I bet you that rises as I start to have typos. So now in Streamsheets world, all I need to do is grab the data and drag it onto the sheet to start working with it. So this is going to dynamically update with heart rate data as it flows into the Streamsheet system. And now I'm going to start working with it immediately. And I know this is fast, but the whole point of this session is to show you the amazing stuff happening at the edge with ioFog and Streamsheets so that you can get jealous and want to work with it yourself. So I'm going to give this a title, and I'm going to call this evaluation, or actually let me call this warning. What I'm looking for here is my heart rate too high? So watch this. All I have to do now is put an if statement. Now, if my heart rate is greater than, let's put 60, then I'm going to put the value here high. And if it's not, I'm going to put the value okay. So that formula is dynamically calculated. And so if my heart rate rises above 60 beats per minute, it's going to change from okay to high. That's great. Now, as you can see, though, what's flowing is a single piece of data at a time. And I want to work with the data in something a little bit more like a recorded or like a historian fashion, is a stack of data as it's flowed over time. And now to do that, I can build a quick stack of data using in Streamsheets, using the fact that the spreadsheet is always calculated from left to right and from top to bottom. So if I set this bottom field equal to the current heart rate, then I have the most recent one. Now, if I set the cell above it equal to the cell below it, I start to build a stack. And now I can copy that, and I can push that all the way up here to create a little data history. Now, it's going to come through, and it's all going to be loaded with the same information at first, but that's going to get replaced by flowing information as it moves through the system. Now I'm noticing that my heart rate data does not seem to be changing here. So I wonder if perhaps I've got a Bluetooth connectivity problem. So I'm going to restart the heart rate monitor and see if that then starts to get the data flowing a little bit more reliably here. So cool, let's do that. And either way, we can still work with the data here, but to make it interesting, it's best when it flows through live. So let's see if this starts to come back through. And I'm going to start to build with my data history here by adding a chart. And so if I go and add a chart on Streamsheets, it's going to prompt me in a moment here. Okay, let's add it here. And now I want to do a line chart. And so to add a line chart, I'm going to make it smooth, and let's get the data range in place. And then this should be very familiar for anyone who has used Excel, right? Just highlight the data range here. That's C15 on down to C27. Gives me the whole data range, and let's confirm that. Looking good. And then we're going to display here, in my case, a columnar display. And I think then we're good with regard to those properties. Let me expand the chart, which we're going to see just a flat line as I try to get my data flowing again. It's a shame, it was coming in so nicely. Let's see if we can get it to come through with the live stream repeating. Let me turn this back on. Great. And if that doesn't happen, I have a workaround, which would then reset the Bluetooth radio. So let's see if this comes through. So I have my chart, and now I can do some really amazing stuff to set things like the title and all of the usual visuals. Well, this is incredibly powerful. Watch this. I'm going to set the title of the chart to be equal to a field of information coming in from the data stream. So I don't need to even know the title of the data stream. I can set it all the way back using ioFog. I can set it all the way back here where I deploy the data stream microservices to grab the actual data, and then it will actually show up in the data stream, and then I can tie that into the charting. So I can do processing on the data, but I can also go in and work with visuals here via Streamsheets. So very cool stuff. Now I'm going to do here on the data series, I'm going to add some circular data points here. And that's interesting. And then as we can see, my heart rate data is finally flowing again. So now we've got an uptick. And my heart rate recently was 75, showing that I'm definitely getting more nervous about the data not coming through while I present. So I can also show data labels, and it gives me the numbers right in here. So very powerful stuff. And so since we're about to run out of time, I also want to show a little bit more advanced processing here. I'm going to insert a shape, and I'm going to insert a rectangle that I want to use as a little bit of like a live warning system for what's happening in the system. So you think of it more of like a real-time dashboard. I've created a rectangle shape, and I want to tie it into the data. So something really powerful here is I can actually go into the formula that makes the rectangle. And this is one of the things I love about Streamsheets is you can make very advanced animations. And I'm going to work with what's called the fill format. And so here, I'm going to put another if statement. And so if the value of this field is equal to high, then I want to color this box red. Otherwise, I want to color it green. That should be sufficient to, let's see. Oh,
Exactly.
And then I did the parentheses thing, which I've done a dozen times. So one more, I'm missing one parentheses, and it prompts me for what's missing. So here we go. So it's green, as my heart rate is currently not being picked up off of the wearable as I would like, which is a real shame because normally the data just flows while I present. Let me try to get the data flowing one more time and see if I can get it above 60 here so that I can show you this box turn red as my heart rate's gone too high. But so as we wrap up, what we've got going here is we've used ioFog to turn a regular piece of compute hardware into a powerful edge node. we've pushed Streamsheets out on it, so where the data is flowing into this Bluetooth radio, we can actually grab the data and begin working with it. And then we've actually done some work with it all on the edge, all via the power of Streamsheets, and yet the entire infrastructure that I've got running can be managed via ioFog from anywhere I am on the planet. That sounds to me like a pretty good edge native stack. And so I think we're unfortunately out of time to show any more. But that was everything that we wanted to move through here, minus the data flowing at the rate I would like. And I hope that's been a valuable way to get introduced to Edge Native.
Thank you so much, Philipp and Kilton, for sharing with us these real case scenarios. We really appreciate it. Now, since, as you also mentioned, we're kind of running out of time, we have to let the next session begin. Thank you so much again for everything and for being with us today.
Perfect. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.